Ladies and gentlemen of the internet, this is the Beacon Roundtable, the last live Beacon Roundtable of 2023, as we're going to take next week off to let our team enjoy the Christmas holiday. Got myself, Chris, you got Jangle here. Jangle, how are you doing, man? Can't believe we're already here. We're already to the end of the year.
Yeah, great year. I feel like we've already done a little bit of end of the year chit chat in the openers, but yeah, good year. Couldn't be happier. Numbers are going up. Vibes are immaculate. How about you? How you doing?
Same. I mean, for me, it's like, I really thought that it was probably still October. Right? I'm happy to see where we are. I'm excited for 2024. Obviously there's that period, like I think between the 5th and the 15th, where we might get this ETF answer, specifically for the Bitcoin spot ETF. So it's going to be a really interesting next 2 to 3 weeks. And there's going to be a lot of activity. There's been a lot of activity. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. But yeah, I'm super excited. I can't wait to see how 2024 forms. And I thought we'd take a minute, in this opening segment to kind of talk about, what are we thinking? What's going to be our picks and thoughts on 2024. So Jangle, I'll go ahead and start with you. What do you think is going to be some of the big narratives, some of the projects you think are going to completely fly? Let us all have it.
Well, I mean, one thing that I think has already started, but is going to accelerate as the market continues to heat up, is airdrops. It's pretty insane how with a few $100s you could have made, multiple 5 figures off of Jito. I think that trend's likely going to continue because sort of like in TradFi, nobody wants to IPO in a bear market. Nobody wants to launch their token in a bear market. So now the market's heating up. People are going to get excited about launching their token, retroactive rewards. A lot of people in our community have been pretty bullish on TIA and got that TIA airdrop. And what I've been saying and what a lot of folks have been saying who are deep in, the airdrop farming is, hey, stake that TIA across multiple wallets. And you might qualify for some airdrops. And it looks like those are already starting to occur. I've seen some snapshot tweets on Twitter. So within the Cosmos ecosystem. So, you take that free money, you parlay it into some more free money. What more could you ask for? We've also been seeing a lot with the Solana phone, like the bonk airdrop and other airdrops in the Solana ecosystem based off the Solana phone, based off activity on chain. And so, yeah, that's been very frothy. I wouldn't fade that trend. I think that teasing airdrops is probably the leading strategy for getting activity on your DApp. And yeah, I'm bullish for that to continue. That's probably my safest pick. Chris, you want to go back and forth? You want me to move into another one?
We'll go back and forth because it's funny because if you contrast that to what we were talking about with Solana and Cosmos 6 months ago, much different story, right? People are trying to hold on. We're really just trying to accumulate blue chips. But yeah, in terms of 2024, I completely agree. I think airdrops are going to be huge. I think we're going to see, based on staking, multiple coins, not just TIA. I think infrastructure. I think we're going to see even more. We're going to see more of this trend of, if you stake X token, you'll be given access to X and Y, which I think is going to be a huge boom, not just for data aggregators like Celestia, but possibly other types of things out there. I would not be shocked, and this is one thing that's on my list. I think Coinbase wallet becomes the funnel for normies in the DeFi. I would not be shocked if there happens to be a token for Coinbase wallet or just some type of mechanism where you end up qualifying for airdrops just by being a wallet user. And we've talked about wallets being a narrative for 2024 in the past. I think that's definitely going to be a big thing. Jangle, you went to, was it Consensus last year? And Coinbase wallet was kind of one of the stars of the show because it was so easy to set up and just use it to interact with other people. Yeah, give me another one.
Yeah, that's interesting. The it's hard to get exposure to wallets, right? Usually they don't have a token associated with the wallet, but obviously been bullish on Coinbase for a long time. It's my second largest holding behind ETH, and it won't stop mooning, which is cool, but also the FOMO kicks in. It's like, do I have enough? You never have enough there, so just get used to that feeling. And yeah, I'm pretty confident that wallets they'll capture MEV, application layer will capture MEV. So yeah, pretty good pick. Coinbase wallet is a pretty safe bet. Although really the only way to get exposure to that is through CoinStock, and that also gives you exposure to a lot of other verticals within crypto, like liquid staking, like stable coins, like exchanges, like all the good stuff that you'd want. Layer two, yada yada yada. So another prediction I had was DEX volume. Maybe not sustained DEX volume, but for at least a period in time, maybe a couple 24-hour periods, maybe more, DEX volume will surpass centralized exchange volume at some point during this bull market. It might be just for a flash, but I think DEX volume reaches 51% of centralized exchange volume at some point.
Do you want to name the dexes you think that'll lead that?
Oh, I'm just talking about DEX volume across the board. So,
Oh, okay.
Uniswap, Curve, Osmo, like all the major, liquidity hubs and DeFi volume on there. And then maybe I don't think that's going to happen in the derivative sector, but I think in the spot swapping of crypto assets, the most of that volume will occur on chain for a flash. Like, I'm not saying there's going to be throughout the year 2024, but at least for one 24-hour period, 1 day or 2 days for a flash, DEX volume will flip centralized exchange volume. And, maybe next cycle, that's like a sustained thing. But this cycle, I think it will be a thing for a period of time.
I will say Thorchain is already doing it. So if you are, if you're a Rune believer, their goal is to become a top 3 exchange, period, centralized or decentralized. Obviously, they're not going to pass. They're not going to pass Binance. They're not going to pass Coinbase. But if they can be that next exchange where you could trade and exchange and swap, native Bitcoin and ETH, which you can do on Thorchain, that's bullish, super bullish. One thing on my list, I do believe more countries are going to offer digital residency for global citizens, much like the I'm sure it's a big business now because I don't have it on the agenda, but I just saw on the timeline yesterday, Palau is working with Ripple on something interesting. I don't know what, some type of liquid staking mechanism or a stable coin. Oh, I'm sorry, CBDC. CBDC through Ripple. So I do think that more
Nothing
countries. Burger. Nothing. It's a nothing burger, but
not Palau. Yeah. Palau, hey, digital residency, that's fine, for KYC or whatever. But CBDC through Ripple is a headline to attract the normies to buy more Ripple. Like, that is not going to materialize in anything besides maybe a pump on XRP. But it's not going to result in any.
But it could be a business, right? Like, think about top level domains that have made a huge GDP move because of just literally Web 2 domain sales, like the Kingdom of Tonga.to is Tonga. I'm sure Finland, really loves their their .fi, domain. Whether or not they make a ton of money from that, I don't know. But I do think smaller nations that are looking for some type of digital tourism probably will do it through digital residency, because another thing on my list is I do believe that practically all crypto companies will be leaving offshore, I think, in 2024. What are your thoughts on that?
Practically all? You think practically every single crypto company will unincorporate in the U.S. and reincorporate in that, like, it will move outside of the U.S.?
Well, I do think that
Coinbase is going to move outside of the U.S.?
Possibly. I mean, doesn't Coinbase already have most of their stuff like in a Bahamian entity or something like that?
They have a license out of the Bahamas to offer derivatives to international, like to non-US users, but they're based out of the United States.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about some of the biggest companies, even the FANG companies, Apple, Google, they're incorporated in what, Ireland?
Yeah, I mean, but I don't, so I'm not an expert on
Yeah,
corporate
yeah.
structure and everything, but yeah, I mean, I do think there is a possibility we see sustained flight out of the US if like there's not to pick sides or anything, but if there's a Democratic clean sweep, like if Biden or a Democratic candidate wins the presidency and the Democrats hold a majority in the Senate and the House, then yeah, it's toast for until 2030 or so. But yeah, hopefully that doesn't happen. And then I think we're good. Like honestly, if we at least get a split federal government, then I think we're chill. But if we don't, then I agree. It is maybe not every single one. Like I think Coinbase will probably stay. I think Circle will probably stay. I think there'll still be entrepreneurs and companies that stay. But yeah, we will definitely see that trend accelerate if we get a blue sweep in the federal government.
Well, they definitely won't be going to California, that's for sure, based on what we talked about, a month ago with their new crypto bill. So give me another one, Jangle, off your list. What do you think is going to be a narrative or pick in 2024?
So I'm optimistic on at least one DPIN project actually working. Like, and by actually working, I mean getting a user base of people who are engaging with the project as customers. So whether that be Helium, Hive Mapper, Akash, those are kind of the high level ones I'm looking at. Like we saw Helium really try and not solve that cold start problem with their first implementation. And yeah, I'm kind of excited about the crossover between and when ChatGPT first came out, I was very bearish on AI and crypto, right? As in there were tons of AI Doge or whatever, like tons of meme coins that were just popping up with AI in the name that had nothing to do with anything. They were just random tokens with AI in the name. But as far as decentralized physical infrastructure to train and access AI models, so you have an AI model that is open source, that is accessible to anybody, that runs on a decentralized network that can't be shut down, and is not ultimately owned by OpenAI or Microsoft or any large corporation, right? Where you can download it locally, run it locally, or pay to train a specific model on a decentralized like GPU network. I think that all makes a ton of sense. And so pretty optimistic stuff like Akash. Also, right now, like ChatGPT is currently like read only. You can receive data, like you can input some data, but it doesn't like change necessarily the data structure or any of the learnings of ChatGPT, and it can't actually go out and do stuff for you, right? Like it kind of searches Bing, but it's pretty walled off, right? It can't necessarily go send emails on your behalf. You can't like sick it out into the world to like do stuff on your behalf, right? That's going to change pretty soon. And I predict that in 2024, the first AI crypto transaction will occur if it hasn't already, right? Like, so you're going to have an AI agent that can go out and create private keys, interact with blockchains, send and receive funds autonomously without humans like just using AI as a tool and then doing the transactions themselves. That's going to happen for the first time in 2024. So that's my prediction of both decentralized physical infrastructure and AI agents, because AI can't KYC. Like AI, an AI agent, as I guess the terminology, can't open a Chase account, right? But they can, send and receive USDC on Ethereum or any blockchain. So that's how I think a significant amount of commerce will occur in the future is AI agents interacting with other AI agents. And so like that's all going to be settled on crypto. So we're going to see the first instance of that in 2024.
Yeah, I love that. I think there's going to be definitely an obfuscation, right? More of abstracting more of that away from the user, and trusting code. If we keep talking about code as law, right? When it comes to smart contracts, being able to just have agents take care of that for you, so there's no human error. As obviously with human error, we've seen some big issues in Web3 in the past couple of years. I like that idea. I like that idea a lot. Is it a bit on the scary side? I think for some people, sure. I think that's definitely a huge issue. But no, I like that a lot. I honestly think that based on what you just said, I think there's going to be more work on infrastructure to use existing resources in different ways. I think you just mentioned with, agents doing that. Near is actually going to be contributing to Eigen with data availability with their Near DA solution. That was something they came out with, I think, sometime last month. But I do believe that other alt L1s or just layer ones are going to start using their better TPS and throughput for things like this. For example, Fantom Sonic. Fantom, we all know, buried deep down. Could they make a run in 2024? Maybe. But their Sonic VM is ridiculously fast in terms of finality. It's not Solana fast, but it's pretty darn fast for finality. If they're to use that to use like infrastructure to do their own DA, much like Near just did, if Polkadot does the same with some of their stuff, I think, creating more robustness to a lot of this newer technology that's coming out by providing their infrastructure could be a huge narrative in 2024, at least to give them something else to stand on besides just being, a graveyard for other projects that didn't make it.
Yeah, I mean, why not? Like, it just seems like Eigen and Celestia DA are just the clear market leaders, and like, yeah, maybe if it's marginally cheaper, marginally faster, maybe, but I don't know. I don't know enough about the data availability sort of infrastructure layer to say, but yeah, it's clear that Ethereum as a data availability layer has its issues and its cost and its speed. So yeah, the DA wars are upon us for sure, and that goes back to my thesis on staking TIA across multiple wallets. And if you can, I don't know if the cap was hit recently on Eigen restaking. That's also interesting. Bootstrapping economic security from ETH that's already staked. I think that's a really strong narrative for ETH the asset, really strong avenue for airdrops. But yeah, the DA wars are upon us. I'm not particularly optimistic on Fantom just because I don't really hear anybody talking about it ever. So with my limited knowledge of infrastructure, that's my only reasoning. But yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna have some TPS advantage based on the new things they're coming out with. Does that mean that more projects are going to come back to Fantom? Most likely not, but they could use that as a business model for other infrastructure plays. There's no doubt that the tech, at least for Fantom, was pretty darn good with what they were trying to accomplish. It was just everything else that was not good. But I do think that a narrative in 2024 will be GameFi, but it won't be as quickly as people think. I think there's going to be a couple of projects that are going to make it and show the potential. But I honestly don't think, unless it's like somewhere past October, that GameFi maybe makes a big run for more things. I do think we're just going to have this high from the BTC ETF. I think we're going to get a lot more exposure, more institutions coming in, more normies coming in. We'll be thriving in a bull, so that means there's going to be a lot of meme coins, a lot of craziness. One thing I have on my list is I do think shit coins are going to get an ETF somewhere. Whether or not that's going to
no, not in 2024.
Hey,
not in the US.
Well, it wouldn't be in the US. I'm just saying in terms of like some type of exposure, like probably on like a second tier CEX where they're going to offer
like an index. Yeah.
That's what I meant. That's exactly what I'm saying. It's like for those who don't want to worry about the highs and lows of things like Bonk or Pepe or some of these others that are out there, Doge, SHIB, having an actual index fund to get exposure to a big basket of them could be interesting. I think that could be something that someone's definitely going to try to do in 2024.
How do you, if you were to make an index on meme coins, how do you like write the rules around that index of what gets added, how and when to rebalance? It sounds like a nightmare.
Sounds like a giga brain move for somebody. I'm sure somebody's super bullish on that. You mentioned liquid restaking, which is something that Eigenlayer is coming out with. There's a couple different different projects that are coming out with something soon, Stater being one of them. And I do think that being able to do liquid restaking using EigenLayer and other technologies that are coming out are going to be huge. I think that's going to be a huge boom with its own set of DeFi services tied to it. I think we're going to see, lending, market making, a lot of things happening based off of restaking in 2024. I think it's going to be huge, not just for ETH, but for some of these other tokens as well that could definitely use an infusion or at least some type of mechanism that would work for them in that case.
EigenDA is the first instance of restaking with EigenLayer, right? Does EigenDA use EigenLayer restaking for security?
That I don't know off the top of my head. I do know that Stater is probably the first to come out of testnet with one that uses EigenLayer for the restaking
for network security.
Yeah.
Is it like an app chain?
No, it's just a token that has a mechanism that. Yeah, I'd have to go into what I've seen, which we haven't really talked about, but I do think that there's a future for it, for sure. They've in testnet. There's been a lot of good press about it. So
yeah, for people who are confused on what we mean by restaking, is basically like the idea, like think of all of the app chains on Cosmos that, we're not on Cosmos as in on the Cosmos hub, but all the app chains within the IBC ecosystem that are built with IBC that basically have had to hyperinflate their token in order to pay security pay validators and like have a security budget. And instead of having the only stakeable asset to participate in network consensus be their native token, you could also basically pay for people who already have liquid staked ETH to also validate your network on top of holding an ETH LST. So it basically reduces the amount that you have to pay for your security budget because you already have like people who are willing to hold ETH in a bull and bear market, but people might not necessarily be willing to hold, I'll pick on Osmo because they can probably handle it, like Osmo in a, bear market. Now, probably so. It survived a cycle, but that's the idea. It's like, hey, I want to spin up an app chain, but I don't necessarily have a bunch of people who will hold my token through extreme volatility. And by the way, I'm going to have to hyperinflate it in order to pay them enough to justify them having exposure to this, super small cap coin. So you can either just have restaking with ETH, or you can have both staking with ETH through something like EigenLayer or your native token, or both. So you can pay, the restakers maybe some token inflation, but you have to pay them less because they only have to hold ETH, which they're already comfortable with. Maybe you pay them a little bit of MEV. You also pay the people who are staking your native token. Maybe you pay them more. Like, it's all customizable, right? So it allows more customizability and bootstrapping a security model and a validator network for your app chain. So yeah, I'm really excited to see if any of that goes live, because it's basically like it's a way for ETH the asset to get value accrual from a multi-chain world, right? So it adds like resiliency to ETH the network beyond, or ETH the asset beyond just the Ethereum kind of modular, or the Ethereum like roll up L2 centered roadmap, which still optimistic on, pun intended. Still really excited for base and some other, really just mostly base in terms of the L2 ecosystem right now is the most exciting, but also excited for application chains, for applications that can get big enough and justify putting in the work to have their own security budget, not pay rent to Ethereum.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be an interesting boom. It's interesting how different DeFi as a whole looks every 12 months. And I do think a lot of it's just been such an interesting snowball of how we got to where we are now. Before we get to your picks for, specifically BTC Dom, I do have a couple interesting ones. I do think that a lot of people are going to be talking about the battle between Modular and ZK blockchains versus the ETH L2s, specifically all of the optimistics and anything like from Polygon and their chain development kit descendants that are coming out. They're gonna have a pretty interesting TVL battle in 2024. When I say modular and ZK, we're talking about Celestia, Mantle, Fuel, Linea, Scroll, Sync, uh, even Polygon ZK EVM. That would be on one side versus Optimism, Arbitrum, Polygon, OPBNB, the new stuff from like Immutable and all this other stuff that's coming out that's based on the Polygon CDK. It's going to be interesting to see where TVL flows, but I do think that having multiple blockchains fight for block space is probably good for us in the end. It's all just a matter of what's going to rise from the ashes from this battle. It's going to be a really interesting one, in my personal opinion. What do you think about that?
Rising from the ashes of what battle? The data availability battle?
That or just, just who's gonna escape with the most TVL, I guess, out of all. I mean, that doesn't mean that, TVL doesn't mean that there won't be good opportunities for investors on all of those, but obviously, most people are going to go where the money goes, right?
Yeah, TVL is honestly, it's really dependent on the price of the assets on the chain. Like if Solana goes to 500 or Sol goes to 500, Solana TVL is going to really greatly increase, right? Same thing with ETH, same thing with, Osmosis. If the Osmo token rips, same thing with, the TIA. If the, Celestia, if the TIA token rips. Actually, what's funny is there's kind of this, not funny, but it's kind of bearish or an interesting like misincentive that's built into Celestia. Like the more expensive TIA becomes, the more expensive Celestia as a network is to like use as a data availability layer. I still think it's like an order of magnitude cheaper than, using ETH or like the OP stack and building like a, building within the OP stack. So I don't think that matters like for a while for several multiples, but that's like an interesting tidbit. I'm sorry, what rises from the ashes of what?
Just between the L2s that fight and looking for, obviously we had Declan, from Consensus on to talk about, Linea and their movement forward. But I do think that there's going to be an interesting battle to see, obviously two different schools of thought, but there's more money in the optimistic rollup section or just the side chain L2s than there is in Modular and ZK right now. I'm sure there's going to be a point where that probably flips, and not sure exactly what causes that flip, but there's definitely a lot of movement on both sides of the equation there. So, and we haven't even talked about Alto ones. I mean, there's going to be
tough. It's tough.
Yeah. I mean, Avalanche, Cosmos, Solana, they're all going to rip with this bull market. It's just a matter of where is everybody going to go. I do think dydx on the Cosmos side, along with Kujira and Injective, are going to lead the way, at least on the Cosmos side.
What do you think about Osmosis? I mean, Osmosis is like the liquidity layer of IBC, right? So
it's the DEX app chain. So it's pretty much,
yeah, like if I want to swap assets anywhere on IBC, I go to Osmosis. At least that's me. I could be messing up. There's another option.
Oh, there's multiple options. For most that are just app chains, Osmosis is that DEX. But if you look at Injective and Astroport moved from Terra, well, it's still on Terra, but technically now it's on Neutron and Injective. That's a huge DEX that's going to be coming back up. Kujira has its own ecosystem of all kinds of services, not just Clob DEX, not just staking, lending. It also has its own swap and also an aggregator on top of it. And they're trying to bring in an NFT marketplace into Kujira. So that disclosure, I'm big into Kuji, have been since the beginning. But I've been looking at both in Kujira and Injective. I do think that there is a lot of buzz coming that way, and I think from an experience standpoint, I think they definitely could lead the way. And dydx, of course, is just its own huge animal, and I do hope that they can really put a dent into how we look at perps and how we look at even. And I think the DA thing, also I think is going to help hopefully with like high speed or high frequency trading moving forward as more institutionals and more hedgies and I don't know, others come into the space.
Yeah, the consensus view, I think the consensus view was, and I think this is still correct, right? Directionally correct, that the OP stack or the Arbitrum stack would be, popular for creating some standardization in L2s and like creating your own app chain that's not really your own app chain, right? It's like it's an L2, creating your own L2 if that's something you want to do. I think OP has like won out. They've gotten support of Coinbase. They've gotten a lot of integrations, and they're becoming the standard right now. Arbitrum is like, it's not permissionless to fork the Arbitrum code, right? You can deploy an L3 on top of Arbitrum. You can't deploy your own L2 with the Arbitrum stack, right? Without getting permission from the DAO, which is just like a nightmare. So OP is winning. OP is going to be standard for L2s, the OP stack. ZKs are just too far behind right now. They're way too expensive, especially when you look at the other modular approaches that are happening for app chains. Like L2s are going to be more expensive than app chains, right? And they've still got a long way to go. But right now, it's hard. I don't think that 2024 is the year of the ZKs, right? Outside of airdrop speculation, just because it's too early, it's too expensive. People don't care, right? So that's the hard truth, but I hate it, but that's it. And then, yeah, I think you're going to see it become more secure and economical to create app chains and take this horizontal scaling method. So I'm still of the opinion that there's very few applications where that is justified. I think dydx is one of them because it's such a large total addressable market and because they already have so much traction. But there's a lot to where it doesn't make sense to have your own, horizontal scaling sort of approach. And then like the consensus view, what is now consensus, and I think it's correct, is that Solana is the Ethereum of this cycle, right? The BTC Maxis really faded Ethereum because I see your smile. I mean,
did that really just come out of your mouth?
It's addressing problems that the Ethereum in a current L2 stack does not really address, right? It's super low latency and it's nerd sniping people who are obsessed with those problems. So the other sort of like monolithic approaches, I'm not as hip with, but like Solana, after surviving FTX, after surviving some of these things, like it's likely the Ethereum of this cycle, which means that yes, there's more upside, there's more volatility, there's more potential downside on corrections. But yeah, as I kind of published earlier this week, is for me to not have any exposure to that would be kind of irresponsible. So even though like at a period of time, there was, last cycle, there was, ETH did not have, there was a time before 1559, right? There was a time before the merge. There was a time where ETH was really a lot weaker of an asset. And, that's where Solana is now. Sold the asset, it really sucks as money, right? It's got higher rates of inflation. It's doesn't have that direct value accrual. Its fundamentals are just dumb, right? But what I learned last cycle during the Alt L1 rotation is fundamentals don't matter. Liquidity flows matter, at least on a, within the cycle time horizon. Liquidity flows matter. What pumped AVAX and Sol and Luna last cycle was people yeeting into those assets, FOMO into the assets, but also farmers entering that ecosystem and yield farming with that native asset pair, right? So if I'm on Terra, RIP, I'm going to pair with Luna and something else, right? If I'm on Solana, I'm going to pair with Sol and something else. If I'm on Avalanche, I'm going to pair with AVAX and Joe or whatever, right? Like, but the native asset, that gas token, is the most common liquidity pair outside of like Tether. Those flows alone, combined with the desire of people to get on chain, money's going to flow into those assets. So it's hard. It's a little bit harder for me to see the AVAX narrative than it is the Solana narrative. Like, I get it. I know that the whole private blockchain thing, like they got some deal with JP Morgan to try some stuff out, and maybe that narrative will carry them, but still the C chain is going to get really expensive. And like, I see more flows into developers being interested in building some sort of app chain with like Cosmos, like a data availability solution. Like, I see that from a developer perspective more than I see like the fervor to deploy a bunch of subnets. So, but anyway, doesn't matter. What matters is if people buy the token or not. I think people are going to buy Sol for sure. At this point in the cycle, it's like clear that it survived. It's a little frothy right now, but it doesn't matter if it's going, to if we're really in the bull market, like it's probably gonna outperform ETH, right? From here to the top.
I mean, proportionally, yeah, it kind of has to, right? I mean, they haven't even really gotten started with all of their new infrastructure upgrades. So it's going to be interesting to see where we go from here. Talk to me about where you think BTC and ETH end up in 2024.
Man, like a price target, I don't know. I think I don't know if the ETFs are going to be. I do think we see an Ethereum ETF by the end of 2024. Not bearish ETH, still by far my largest holding. Yeah, I'm not like a trader, so I'm trying. Like if I buy an asset, I want to hold it for at least 3 months, right? I'm really not, unless it's like a couple $100. I'm just punting around for fun, which I don't do too often. But yeah, I do think we see Bitcoin ETF approval like within the next couple months, right? Is the with the market's pricing, you see that in the GPTC discount just shrinking. It's like sub 10% or whatever. I think it might be sub 5%. I have to check. But yeah, I'm not breaking any news here. Like BTC ETFs on the horizons coming real soon. I think the ETH ETF will follow probably within 8 months after. I don't know if they'll allow staking or what, but I'm really, really optimistic on the next year. I'm also really excited that inscriptions and transaction fees on Bitcoin are becoming material. I talked to a person in the oil and gas industry who does a lot of infrastructure for Bitcoin miners in West Texas and Oklahoma, and they had no clue about transaction fees versus, like, it's not even a concept. They're just like, yeah, you mine the blocks, you get the block reward, right? Like transaction fees on Bitcoin have been so immaterial for so long, and that continues to be an existential threat to Bitcoin. But like for the first time ever, we're seeing meaningful, not the majority of fee revenue or not the majority of miner rewards coming from transaction fees, but a material amount of transaction fees. So that is we're working in the right direction there. Good job, Bitcoin. We'll see if that lasts. But either way, it's not going to be a problem for this cycle. So, and these institutions don't have any idea about that. It's not on their radar at all. So, yeah, I think BTC dominance, I think 60 or 65% for BTC dominance is a pretty conservative number. Like we could see 70% Bitcoin dominance. I don't think we see greater than, what was the last cycle high? 75% or something. 74. I don't think. I don't think we see it break previous cycle all-time high in Bitcoin dominance. But like, we're at 53, 54% right now. Like 55% seems likely. Like, I don't think that it's going to be like, maybe there's some chop around the actual ETF launch, but like structurally for the next year, 2 years, whatever, there's going to be a lot of salespeople that are going to be pushing Bitcoin ETFs by, BlackRock, Fidelity, ARK, or what, like all these companies that are launching ETFs have teams of salespeople that are going to be going to asset managers, that are be going to, funds, and they're going to be saying, hey, you need to buy Bitcoin. You don't have any Bitcoin exposure. You're messing up, right? Like that's what they're going to be doing, right? So how can you be bearish, right? It's such a large amount of capital and such a immense incentive to drive capital inflows from the most powerful financial institutions on the face of the planet. Like, how can you be bearish? Yeah, maybe it's sell the news, but you're picking up pennies in front of a steamroller, bro. Like that's the idea. So, but the ecosystem of DeFi and smart contract platforms have evolved so much since 2020. Even with all these capital inflows, it's hard for me to see Bitcoin dominance having an all-time high breakout. But yeah, like 65, 70% is fair. Still, I think being allocated to ETH anywhere around 0.05, 0.045 is like close to the bottom, right, on the ETH BTC ratio. And I think that if we do see 0.045 or 0.04 or anywhere in between, we're going to see a vibe very similar to what we saw in like March of 2020, where during the pandemic, the the bottom fell out, and you had basically Bitcoin maxis celebrating the death of Ethereum at 0.03, and then throughout the rest of the cycle, throughout the second half of really most of the bull market in the last cycle, it was up only on the BTC. So that's my perspective. Is we have first half of the year probably gonna still be rough for the BTC ETH ratio. Second half of the year and beyond, especially once there's an ETH ETF or multiple, and you get this same sort of sales force and muscle behind pushing the ETH narrative to large capital allocators, you're going to see it catch up. And then, I think rip past the last cycle highs pretty quickly. But, I'm strapped in for turbulence, and but it's just like, just like any time there's going to be some altcoins that rip and outperform. But most will not. So it's like really choose your altcoins carefully.
Do you think Bonk is going to be that?
I have no clue. I honestly I have no idea. I have no specialty in meme coins, but Solana, it's the Pepe of Solana, right? It's the
it was a really bad segue, but tell everybody what they should do if they think it's going to be Bonk.
I guess you should what? Get leverage long bonk,
like subscribe.
Yeah, like and subscribe. Do that.
Comment. Tell us what you think. This is poorly executed today. Oh my goodness. We'll go ahead and move on. Thanks for entertaining our picks for 2024. The Bonk team should really get the Solana mobile team. No, I know. They should get them a really nice Christmas gift or something the other way around. So basically, Solana had a phone they put out earlier this year, the Solana Saga, which is an Android phone. It was really just put out as an unlocked phone that you could get. I think it's GSM in Europe. $600. Most people didn't buy it. But in the last month, or I'm sorry, 2 weeks ago, they decided to, if you bought a $600 Solana phone, they're going to give you $500 in Bonk. This was before the Coinbase listing. So guess what? They sold out of the phones, and then the Coinbase listing comes, and now the phones are worth $5,000 on eBay because of the Bonk frenzy. So, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah, take that, Marquise Brownlee.
Exactly. Oh, don't. Oh yeah, MKBHD totally dunked on that phone.
He totally
That's right.
dunked on it. He made a whole video dunking on the Solana phone.
Yeah, he sure did.
Wonder if he's opening it back up now, claiming
he's like, I should have gotten some Bonk. Man,
he's got some. He bought the Solana phone to review it.
It's probably That's true.
Somewhere.
I know. So he should be loading up on Bonk.
Now he's a DJ.
Yeah, so what's interesting about this is, we talked about this in the 2024 picks. There's actually multiple projects that are looking to airdrop tokens to people who own a Bonk phone, or rather a Saga. So, because if you
Bonk
get a Saga,
you're a good name. I think
Bonk phone. Yeah, let's just call it the Bonk phone. So yeah, if you decide to get a Bonk phone, hold it, and you probably will get, multiple airdrops off of it. So you've made back your 600 pretty damn quick, in my personal opinion, which is crazy. I mean, this is the life we live in 2023 going into 2024, that a phone becomes your biggest ROI in your hand without even touching it. I've looked at some of the deep dives into this. I'm a big tech nerd, so I follow a lot of these things as they come out. The experience is not terrible. Most people who dunk on it is because they don't go into Web3 at all. So from a Web3 perspective, you have a full Web3 app store. So you have Magic Eden, you have Fantom, you have all of the different Solana apps available to you, full DApp, experience with a Web3 browser in there. It's I think you can use Brave as well as their other browser that's in there, but it's not a bad experience. It's just you have to really live and breathe the Solana ecosystem. So if you can do that, this phone, not a bad play. Most likely won't receive any Android updates. So there's that. But yeah, what a play for anybody who decided to buy a bonk phone and flip it on eBay for 4 figures, and probably take the bonk along with it. That's probably the saddest part. It's probably they probably get the phone and they don't have the bonk. But yeah, what a move for bonk and Solana. I mean, if anything, got people talking. So yeah, going to be pretty interesting about that. So will they cause they're not going to cause a blockchain, clog, but I can tell you what did. We've already talked about this. Inscriptions have been crippling over the last couple of months. Obviously they've raised fees on the Bitcoin Lightning Network. We've had people who are like, it's costing me a lot more money just to send Bitcoin from one place to another than it ever did. I remember I was trying to get into a couple of these meme coins on Avalanche, and I was not about to pay 2 AVAX, to do it for like $100 spot. I was just like, no. But this is what Inscriptions have done. The other part
that's
of
why
it too.
It's tough for me. It's tough for me
Yeah.
to like be like, I don't see the key differentiator for AVAX. Like, it seems like, if you want exposure to the more app chain thesis, like, maybe buy Osmo, maybe buy dydx, maybe buy TIA and stake it across multiple wallets. Sol is obvious for the monolithic approach, and then ETH and maybe OP for L2s. Like, I just don't see, because AVAX gets expensive. Avalanche gets expensive when
Well, they're
when
gonna. I
there's
mean, I think they've fixed it. I think gas is back to normal. But last Friday, Arbitrum goes down for an hour and a half. I think seven. Well, not exactly, but 78 minutes. They stopped producing blocks because on the sequencer, because Inscriptions caused such a huge spike, it knocks it offline. Interesting test for stress, I suppose, by using Inscriptions, which is really just metadata, inside of blocks. What I will post here in the chat for everyone to check out is this thread from Saigar. Specifically, if you're curious about what Inscriptions are, what they do, it's created a whole narrative on the Bitcoin network for BRC20. The only difference is that from a BTC standpoint, they could make it go away with a snap of a finger if they really wanted to, but I don't think they're going to. That was our biggest worry. Plus, you don't really have a whole lot of DeFi services on Lightning, but now there are these L2s that are starting to come about. So you have all kinds of narratives coming up there that we didn't talk about in our 2024. But certainly, if you are interested in degen enough, I'm sure you could do a little bit of research and find your way in that space. But yeah, Jangle, what are your thoughts on Inscriptions? And you mentioned it that it is something that is probably going to be a fee generator in some aspect.
I don't really get them. I don't really understand. Like, what's the point? Why do they exist? It seems almost like spam, but somebody's paying for it, right? It's just like speculation on.
Sure. I mean, I'm sure there could be some real utility to it. I don't know what that is currently, but hopefully, if anybody wants to read the full thread from Saigar respectively on what they've been doing, I will say it's too expensive to do it really on ETH mainnet, even though that's been done on ETH mainnet. So it's a pretty interesting move. I think the Bitcoin situation is a bit different, but yeah. It also took down the Open Network, which is Telegram's blockchain, due to traffic. So this little graphic shows a little bit of, specifically with hourly inscriptions, more than 4.5 million on, what is this? Oh, that's on BNB. My goodness. That is a lot of spamming. So.
Yeah, and it's been very spammy on Avalanche as well for a while. I mean, I guess it pumps up your network metrics if people don't look into what the nature of the transaction volume is. Pumps up the fees, but
yep.
Yeah, I from a use I don't really understand outside of Bitcoin ordinals, I could just be totally I don't see what it's like. I don't see the point of Inscriptions. I might be totally missing it, but are people right now too? I'm sure that NFTs. Are they?
Yeah, we'll have to get an expert on to tell us all about why. If you're an Inscriptions expert, feel free to reach out. I want to know, what's the big deal on Bitcoin utility. I get it for Bitcoin NFTs, at least on inscriptions on Sats.
Oh, I think the main point is, right now we got like 15 people in the stream. We got 4 likes. So if we could inscribe some likes onto this video stream, like maybe that would spam our network metrics or our channel metrics. At least maybe that's the point. Now I get it. So
that's beautiful.
But this is free. This is free.
Yes, exactly. We'll move on to something that happened back on Thursday. Man, Ledger. OpSec is not Ledger's forte. It is, which is really sad because they're the market
it should
leader.
be. It should be.
Should be.
Isn't that supposed to be their whole thing?
It's supposed to be their whole thing, but it is just absolutely garbage. For those who are not aware, and for a lot of people, if you don't spend a whole lot of time on DeFi, then this didn't affect you at all. But for those who are within like an 8-hour window between early in the morning on the 13th, a Ledger employee had their credentials phished to the libraries that develop their Ledger Connect library. It's basically, if you go to a website and you go to connect your wallet, you see Ledger Live or Ledger Connect on that stack. That's just code that says, hey, you can directly connect your Ledger here and use it to transact. Well, unfortunately, that was hacked, and a rogue version of it was deployed so that when people clicked on, because it was injected at that point, it didn't matter what wallet you used. This code was injected to then come up with a second pop-up window for an approval. And if you approve that, then you got drained. Roughly, I think almost 600K got drained by multiple people. I've seen multiple people across multiple Discords and Telegrams, during that time who did get specifically drained of some pretty good resources. So we were on it. We told our membership to specifically not interact with anything for at least that day. Specifically, Ledger had a fix out, but it took actually action on both your side and any protocol who used that library side, which is actually quite a bit. Revoke.cash used this, and people use Revoke.cash for revoking approvals. So this was a pretty gnarly hack, and it was done by a professional group who makes drainers. So what's interesting,
they did fish. I mean, the key thing here, and the reason why this is gross negligence from Ledger, because it was a prior employee who was phished. It was a former employee, was the words that they used. And a former employee should not have system access to be able to push updates to any production code, right? So especially production code that is used by hundreds or thousands of entities. So it is absolutely gross negligence on Ledger's part, just like after the Ledger Recover disaster. We cannot endorse using a Ledger. It is infinitely better than using a hot wallet, especially on a device that you do anything else besides crypto on or click any links on. It is much better than using a hot wallet, but it's really, I mean, it's like I can't find the words to condemn this adequately. It is gross negligence to have this sort of malicious code pushed from a former employee being phished. Gross negligence is putting it kindly.
And their communications during this entire process were just atrocious. It was not good. It took a lot of key opinion leaders to come out and just say, don't interact with any dApps until this is cleared. And they came out within like 40 minutes and said, this is fixed. I'm like, no, sir, it's not.
Yeah, because they might have fixed they might have pushed an update to the library that fixed it, but like if every front end didn't, it's like almost like they care infinitely more about the perception of their competence than they do their users' funds. Because if somebody had read that and said, oh, it's fixed, but they didn't make sure what they were signing was not malicious, they didn't make sure that the front end had updated, then if they could have been drained still after the all clear tweet was sent.
Bless you.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, tough scene. We have we've published some steps internally in our mastermind on how to make 100% sure that you're not affected by this, and that your browser is your cache is cleared and all that sort of stuff. So as always use a hardware wallet. Always verify on your software wallet, on your wallet window that pops up, that you know what you're about to sign. Once you hit accept on that, always look at the screen on your hardware wallet and verify that you understand what you're about to sign on your hardware wallet, and only then actually sign it. And if you're not doing that, then you should have all funds separated on another wallet in cold storage with no approvals that you don't touch, and sign hardly ever. And then the rest of the stuff that you're yeeting around in DeFi should be play money, because until you understand how to do that, you are at risk with every transaction you sign.
Yeah, one thing that I wanted to point out from this tweet from Ledger, which was earlier this morning, is that they're going to be disabling blind signing with your Ledger device. Basically, what that means is they're going to be pushing clear signing, which is they're going to provide really good information to your tiny window on your Ledger device on what you're going to sign in a much more regular, human readable format. I don't know exactly how that's going to specifically help, but at least it's a step in the right direction. There's still no information on if they're going to be open sourcing their secure element code or getting it audited. This is, almost a year in the making for that information. But as Jangle said, if you're in a situation where you have to use a hardware wallet and there are no other options, as a product, Ledger is a hardware wallet you can use. It's not one we're going to recommend, but let's say you're in Cosmos, let's say you're in Thorchain, let's say you're in Solana. You don't really have any options currently, so that's going to be you just got to stay safe. Be very, very careful. And again, we have multiple resources, that we have on how to do wallet separation, specifically in our mastermind, also in Beat the Banks, our free group. We have plenty of stuff on that. Okay, we'll go ahead with this. So there was a huge hack of Bored Apes through something called NFT Trader.
Again?
I guess it was through an NFT marketplace. Roughly 37 Bored Apes and 13 mutant apes were compromised. So the interesting part is on the specific messages on the blockchain, the hacker put this here. First of all, they're saying they're a good person. They're not a hacker. There's an actual person who exploited it, but it wasn't them. They're a scavenger. And so I'm like, okay, what does that mean? First of all, they were just looking for a token. They're looking for tokens to scavenge, but they happen to find NFTs. So they're happy to give them back with a bounty of 30 ETH for each Bored Ape and 6 ETH for each mutant ape. So I'm like, so you're still stealing. You're not a good Samaritan for doing so. But I guess if you got a heart and you're a hacker, I don't know, man. Yeah, pudgies are flipping apes for sure. Absolutely.
That's
I
happening.
completely agree. So yeah, that's the news for this week.
Shit, Mad Lads might flip apes.
Wouldn't that be a move, considering they weren't even the one of the earliest collections on Solana.
Really, I think anything's gonna flip apes to zero. What a fumble. And like they haven't, like, I don't know, their whole metaverse thing, like I feel like they haven't executed on the roadmap at all. Like every time every time I see apes, it's just like apes getting hacked, apes going blind, apes, they're always catching L's. Like I've never seen a headline about Bored Apes that I've been like, wow, like they're really doing a great job. What an intelligent community of builders, and entrepreneurs. It's like, what a bunch of cringe soy boy supreme wearing hype beast weirdos. That's the Okay. Yeah, maybe that's a bit much. Sorry.
That's a bit much.
Sorry, guys.
I will say
guys.
this: the CEO of Yuga did pay the bounty. I'll give him that.
Well, good for him.
So
that's nice.
But anyway,
they did sell a bunch of other side land for like tens of millions of dollars, right? And then like gems for the land. And like, oh, you're gonna be able to use it in this sick game. It's gonna be awesome. And now it's like doesn't exist a year later.
Didn't they have the donkey game? Who had the donkey game?
I don't know. Like,
I don't know.
I'm sure people, made a lot of money flipping those lands and, whatever. I'm sure a lot of people lost a lot of money too. So, but it's, that's the name of the game. It's just like, hey, if you say you're going to build something, you raise millions of dollars for it. Like, you should probably build it. And then if you don't, like, you should probably just like give the money back if you don't build it at all. Right. And then there's like the ape coin. There's like all these derivatives. It's like, they are just milking this. And like, the aesthetic was cool. I mean, at least any of their derivative projects are not like the Azuki. What was the other Azuki version? Their derivative project that
Elements.
Elements, was that it? Yeah, and those were just totally the same. At least like mutant apes and stuff. It's like different art style. If you got the business model of selling JPEGs, like at least do the JPEGs good. So they make good JPEGs, but does that justify a brand outside of that? If there's no like. I think it was, I'm quoting somebody on this. I think it was on the Chopping Block podcast on Laura Shin's like Unchained channel, where I think it might have been Hasib who said like there's no intellectual core in the Bored Ape community. Like they're not. I don't know. Perhaps there is. Perhaps I'm fading them too hard, but I mean.
Give him a chance, Jangle. Give him a chance.
Much easier to be optimistic on like anything else.
Well, there you go, guys. Thanks for being with us. It's been a while since I've fudded,
so there you go.
I was about to say you haven't been too fuddy lately, so I appreciate.
We've been up only for too long, so I've been very light on the FUD as to not deteriorate the vibes. But now we've been up only for so long that the vibes deserve to be smacked around a little bit. So yeah, Bored Apes I'd say like 5 ETH is fair. Pudgies deserve 30 ETH. The Bored Apes don't. Yeah, there it is.
We'll see what happens. Well, this is the end of our live calls for 2023. We'll come back in 2024 in 2 weeks on the Wednesday for our next live call. May have a surprise for you guys next Wednesday. We'll see. But thanks for joining us today. Jangle, take us home so we can get back to the day.
Yeah, thanks for coming, everybody. We'll be here next. Whoa, no, we won't be here next week because it's Christmas week.
Week of Christmas,
But we will be here on January 3rd.
Yes.
The week after that. And, check us out on our group. We have a training every Friday. Do we have one this Friday?
Yes, we do.
Sweet. So yeah, check us out on Friday on Beat the Banks. It's btb.beacondefi.xyz. Sign up, hang out with us. We have a training every Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern, as well as our call here on Wednesdays. Hit a like, subscribe if you haven't. Most like over 50% of you who watch this aren't subscribed. Travesty. Hit that notification bell and drop a comment. Just feed that algorithm, pump our bags. Appreciate you. And yeah, we'll see you in 2 weeks back here. 07.
Happy holidays, everybody. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa.
All that
goodness. We're out.